I can hear you now. It's fine. All right, so we'll just start. Um, Let me go back to. All right. Well, thanks for joining, Reggie. It's a pleasure to finally have a chance to talk with you. I know we briefly spoke during our Token Summit, right? So ever
hmm
since then, things have just kind of taken off, right, with your company, with your ICO, Veritaseum. We briefly chatted in the sense that you're now the number one ranked crypto asset, right? So how's it feel?
It's a cornucopia of myriad feelings, to be truthful. So it's
Uh-huh.
good that you know, it's good just to see the number one. Um, but if you remember, I'm a financial investor, engineer, analyst, so I
Right.
look at the space totally different from practically everybody else. That different look seems to cause some consternation because the majority of the other assets, which are not competitors, um, they their constituency seems to value things that are different than my constituency does. And when I say constituency, I mean my prospective customer and client base. So,
Right. Absolutely.
for instance, I get a lot of questions. Some of it, which seems to be borderline aggression. Why don't you? Where's your white paper? And
Uh-huh.
what's wrong with your website? And most guys who deal in Wall Street institutional buy side um, space don't do white papers. So
Right. Right.
um,
All
I'm
right.
just at a loss.
So some people probably don't know your company. So just kind of go a step back, right? Give us an overview of Veritasium, what the company does, and what made you start the company and the ICO and the crypto.
Well, the company is a tool set and a consultancy to onboard corporations, investors, individuals into the peer-to-peer capital markets. The peer-to-peer capital markets is basically a moniker that we've coined to explain and delineate the paradigm shift that we're going into. So if you look at it, if you're not familiar with the paradigm shift, I'll give a quick financial history.
Uh-huh.
Throughout the world, there are points where you have technology that enables a massive change in the way business is done. Okay, that technology is enabling, but it's not necessarily what destroys the previous generation and enables the new generation. It's the business models that are enabled by that technology. So now most people have heard of paradigm shifts because I guess either business school or they read the media, etc. And
Uh-huh.
the paradigm shifts presage of significant change in the way things are done. Just to go through some paradigm shifts from way back when to recently, you have the discovery of fire, you have the wheel,
Uh-huh.
you have the combustion engine, the steam engine, you have airplanes in flight. More recently, you have the microcomputer, also known as a PC, personal computer, which ended the reign of IBM and created the reign of Microsoft,
Oh
whose
yeah.
CEO, been the richest man in the world for quite some time. The next paradigm shift was the internet. Now, these paradigm shifts started one, and then 1,000 years later, then another one, then maybe 500 years later, then the next one, and then they're getting closer and closer. The time between each paradigm shift is starting to compress until you went from the PC to the internet,
Uh-huh.
which the PC, the microcomputer, the mini computer, mainframe to the microcomputer, went from IBM being the king to Microsoft.
Right.
Now, the CEO of Microsoft, throughout several paradigm shifts, has still been the richest man in the world for some time. But the next paradigm shift was from the PC to the internet and the internet. And that percentage where Microsoft fell off the top, and you had totally new business models percentage upon this new technology, the internet. That's Google, Facebook,
Right.
Amazon, etc. That was only a few years ago, literally. Already, you have a new paradigm shift, blockchain technology and smart contracts. Okay, this is what 25 years, maybe. Yeah, about 25 years after the last paradigm shift. We're just one or two paradigm shifts ago. We're talking hundreds of years, dozens and hundreds of years between shifts, and before then thousands.
So it's
Now
basically
this
getting
paradigm
smaller and
shift,
smaller each shift.
excuse me,
So it's getting smaller and smaller with each shift, each paradigm
right?
shift.
And now it's getting smaller and smaller, but the change is getting more and more disruptive. Okay, this paradigm shift enables small entities and individuals to compete with global behemoths, and value is unleashed at a monumental scale. Despite this, most people and most entities don't believe it's true. They think it's for nerds or to scam, etc.
Right,
And
right.
while they're sitting on their laurels, significant business models are forming around the technology. Now remember, it's not the technology that causes the fall of the previous empire. It's a business model enabled by the technology. And that's where Veritaseum comes in. We are enabling business models to take advantage of the new technology, hence peer-to-peer capital markets. Capital markets are capital.
I mean, so what exactly does that mean? Because that seems very, lots of buzzwords in there. Like, what exactly does that mean for the average person who's not in finance?
Right, so we'll go over it. So the capital markets, capital, value, money, but not just money, things of value. So capital could be money, real estate, real assets, financial assets, intellectual capital, human capital, it goes down the line. But stuff of value, markets, where people do business, buy and sell things, trade, going back and forth.
So
These
kind of
capital
like an
markets,
exchange, like an exchange of different products, services, value, like a value exchange.
right, right. So these capital markets traditionally were circular and were created around a central hub. Currently, that central hub is one big, powerful entity, such as the Federal Reserve. That's the hub. Around this hub, you have concentric circles, money center banks, which serve this hub, which that hub serves. JP Morgan, Citibank, Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, etc. Bank of Japan, Mitsubishi Bank. And then you have regional, you have national entities such as, U.S.-based banks or country-based banks, and then you have regional entities around those, and those would be smaller banks. And then interspersed, you have things like the NASDAQ and New York Stock Exchange. You have brokerages and other exchanges. But everything goes through the center and is controlled by the center. That's called heteronymous activity. Heteronymous meaning having to rely on a third party. Okay? Enter this new technology. This new technology enables everybody on the very outside ring, instead of doing business through all those concentric circles and paying a piece of the pie to everybody, they can now do business directly with the other guy on the other side of the ring, or next to them, or on a third ring, or wherever they want, for a very, very low cost. That's called autonomy, or autonomy meaning sovereign, or being able to deal with yourself without a third party, or peer-to-peer. In other words, Harry deals directly with Henry, and Henry deals directly with Jim, and Jim deals directly with Susan. Susan deals directly with Rashad. And the ability to do that empowers individuals, drops costs, increases transparency. So we enable business models. We enable end users to use this technology to create business models, to fend for self and do for self, versus through third parties paying economic rent, or basically a piece of the pie every time they want to do something to somebody else. Lengthy description. I know they're buzzwords, but I try to break the buzzwords down because this is extremely powerful. Our very small startup, as a matter of fact, if you look, our office is in Times Square. So just to put this into perspective, I don't know if you can see. You see down the street, in the strip there? Across the street is the Reuters building?
No, I'm not seeing anything right now. Switch to your picture.
Yeah, I pushed the button, so here we go. Okay. So, can you see me?
Yeah, I can see you now.
Okay. So, across the street is a Reuters building. The next block over is Ernst & Young. If you look all the way down there, that's Morgan Stanley. On the corner is NASDAQ. So, we're surrounded by the hub and spoke models. Despite that, this is a very small startup, on the same street, and we're enabling their largest competitors to enable their customers to do business directly with other customers in their jurisdiction.
So, so are your customers mainly banks and exchanges? Because I saw you guys recently partnered with a Jamaican stock exchange, for example.
Jamaican Stock Exchange, yes. We partnered with Jamaican Stock Exchange primarily because in that particular use case, they're a smaller exchange in a smaller country that are very forward-looking. Enabling them to trade digital assets and have trade digital assets directly with the end user. So costs are cut significantly. For instance, you can have a car dealership in Jamaica, and that car dealership can essentially tap liquid markets for capital and essentially sort of going public. Something that would be untold in the U.S., where you had a lot of expenses, not to mention regulatory hurdles. Now, that's not saying there are no regulatory hurdles in Jamaica, But we're in contact with the regulatory agencies, explaining them how revolutionary this is, and hopefully streamlining it. Even without that, the costs are dropped significantly, which means you have capital available to many more businesses, and those businesses can now trade value, information directly with others, and it's like basically opening capital markets to everybody versus the select few, the oligarchical chosen ones, and or those who already have the capital. Now, if you already have the capital, chances are you don't need it.
Now, all right, so your ICO, your opening price was $1.56, I believe. Is that correct?
$1.33 on the first day.
So tokens, each token was $1.33 on the first day.
Yeah, it's $1.66 with a 20% discount.
All right, and now the current price is somewhere, I think, like 150 something, 200 something.
Should be somewhere around 196, 200, and I don't keep that close a price on it.
Because, right. Because as a founder, you can't really be deep inside the weeds and stuff like that, price-wise. I mean, but in general, though, so the early investors in Veritaseum have basically gotten rich off of it in the last 2 months.
Okay, well, let's go over some semantics. The investors in Veritaseum hopefully will do very well. But those are not the people who bought the tokens. The tokens are software. Okay, software keys that enable all these bad buzzwords that I told you.
Right.
And that's what we're selling. I understand a lot of others sell tokens through ICOs as investments, and I hate to sound corny or people boring, but that's not what we're doing. Now, of course, I believe we're trying to change the world, literally, and that's not a buzzword. We're literally trying to change the way things are done. And if you change the way things are done, then obviously there's going to be some value inherent. Okay, if you look through blockchain explorers and look at the people who purchased the largest amounts of tokens, that you can, at least that you can ascertain through the blockchain explorer. You can't see everything there because you don't know what deals are done, behind closed doors. You can see they purchased relatively large blocks and they held on to them, and then they started adding to them. And I could give you some examples of what people are doing, and they're not investing. The most prominent would be the Jamaica Stock Exchange. Now, they're either going to buy, rent, or lease tokens from us in bulk, and they're not doing it, to hope the tokens go up in price. They're doing it to create an entirely new exchange.
Use cases and stuff.
Right. So, massive utility case, number one. A second example, I was just going over it. There's another exchange that we're in negotiations with. Very different from the Jamaica Stock Exchange. This stock exchange is in the top 10 of the global stock exchanges.
Oh, wow.
And it's not the smallest one of the top 10. So we're talking many trillions of dollars, as in more than $2 trillion. Okay. Again, they're not looking to buy an investment from us, or at least not a financial investment.
Right.
They're looking for investment value.
Something of value.
We have a medical clinic in California. We made a significant purchase, trying to transform the clinic. A real estate investor transforms real estate business. There's a lot more value to be taken from Veritas tokens in its utility value than attempting to speculate on price increase. Now, I know it doesn't sound like the case. Give me a couple of years, and those who have created new industries and sitting on large amounts of value compared to those who attempted to try and securitize and speculate, you'll see one up here and you'll see one down there.
So basically, you're saying hold on for a while, right? And
hold on for a while. And Veritaseum is a solution provider. We are not issuing securities or stocks. And this is a misunderstanding that I spent a lot of time going through. Why don't you have a white paper? Why do you hold so many tokens? Our business model is predicated upon selling software and solutions, whole solutions. So I put up to half of them up for sale, 51%. For whatever reason, people only purchased, or entities only purchased just under 2 million of them, under 2%. The other 98% is in reserve to sell to entities or people who want to change the world with it. The Jamaica Stock Exchange is top 10 global stock exchange. Ultra high net worth, medical practice. Practice operators.
I mean, so when the Jamaican Stock Exchange purchases the tokens, are they buying them from you? Are they buying them from Ether Delta? So how exactly?
They're buying directly from me. If you have an institutional use for it, or a significant use in terms of utility value, you could come for us, or you could go through Ether Delta or whatever source. doesn't really matter.
Right. So
But
so people who work directly with you don't really influence the price on the exchanges, then, for example, right? Because they're going.
say that one more time.
So people who purchase the tokens directly from your company don't influence the token price on exchanges like Ether Delta. For the most
They
part.
don't influence the token price, but they do significantly influence the token value. Price doesn't equal value.
Right. Okay.
Price equals value, then nobody can make money
The
because every
news on
time
it,
you make a
right.
transaction is a net. Think of us like EA. If you remember EA, the company, Electronic Arts,
Right.
the game company. Okay, they sell software. Okay, now let's suppose they had 100 million units of I don't know which game, but say
Madden or something.
Yeah, Madden. Okay, I was thinking more like the California carjacking game. What was that?
GTA or?
Yeah, GTA. Yeah, Grand Theft Auto like 43 or something, right?
Yeah.
So they sell Madden or Grand Theft Auto. They have 100 million units, okay, in inventory. The argument is being made by those who don't understand financial valuation is saying, or basically business models and processes, saying EA would be, or EA software would be more valuable if they only sold 2 million units of Madden versus 100 million units of Madden. Okay, or better yet, Grand Theft Auto instead of Madden. Now realize that this game works on a platform, network, the internet, just like our software works on a platform, blockchain platform. And you play with each other. So the more people who are on this network, the more people you have to play, the greater the gaming experience.
Right.
So each unit of the software sold increases the value of all the software sold and unsold. Right? But a lot of people were looking at this ignorantly, and not to be disrespectful, but ignorantly, or without unknowingly, they're looking at this as if it's some type of stock, and these stocks share earnings pool. And so the more stocks issue, the more dilutions in the earnings pool, and the less stocks issue, the more accretion is in the earnings pool. That's not the case. As a matter of fact, it's just about the opposite. That's why I make it very clear. Not only is this not an investment or a stock, but the way you're looking at things in terms of value is totally wrong. You're going off. Not only are you going in a different direction. Not only are you going in the wrong direction, you're literally going in the opposite direction of where you need to be. So when you have the Metcalfe's law or the network effect in play, the more units of the software you sell that run on the platform, the more valuable the entire software platform is. So in order to maximize the value and potentially even the price, but we're not going to discuss price because we're talking in terms of utility and our investment. In order to maximize the value of the platform, I need to sell all 98 million tokens. And when I put all 100 million tokens into play.
So basically the network effects. So in the same case like a Facebook, the more people who use it, the more better it is. Or the same thing like a telephone, right?
Right, or the internet itself.
Right.
2 internet users are going to pale in terms of valuing the platform to 4 billion internet users. Okay, so it's easy to understand once you shape this stigma or this concept of tokens as stocks or as a security and look at the new paradigm the way it is. Now, these people who cannot understand this new paradigm and automatically default to stocks and the term market cap, which drives me crazy, which is why, I'm glad to be in that number 1 spot because I like being number 1 in everything, except for the number 1 person in trouble, of course, but I like being number 1 in everything. It's a misnomer because they take 2 simple numbers,
token
tokens in circulation and price, they multiply it, and that's the valuation. No, that's not the valuation. That's just A times B equals C. And so it gets much more in depth with that. We even went so far as to create our own proprietary valuation framework, and we valued other tokens, network tokens and platform tokens, and we gave one out for free to show everybody how it works. But nobody seems to care except for the actual institutions.
Which one was that?
We gave the Gnosis report out for free, which was the first one, so it's roughly rudimentary, but it's also superior to anything that's available out. We also have Augur, which is our close competitor, and Ripple, which is very interesting. And Ripple is very different from Augur, which is also different from Gnosis, even though they're in the same industry.
All right, so...
And our valuation framework is very different. It is not multiply 1 times 2 to get 3. It's just not the way it works.
All right, then. So how would you exactly, I guess, on a high level, value cryptocurrencies or crypto assets in general? right? Besides just
You know,
doing the market.
number one, you have to understand the business model, and then you have to understand the network effect, and they take advantage of the network effect. So honestly, each case is individual, not only on its own. There's a couple of generalized parameters that you attach, but you have to understand the business model. I started this off with frustration, and I shouldn't have, but I'm human, and I'll tell you why. I spent 2 hours on the phone yesterday with a senior editor from a very prominent financial magazine, and I'm not going to name them just yet, so I'm going to give them a chance to do the right thing. And they were writing a story on me, and at first, I said, okay, it's a prominent magazine, very prominent, not crypto-oriented, but prominent, world business financial. And as it turned out, they were writing a hit piece on me and not a story on me, because a couple of people were complaining about not being able to see our source code and, not, seeing nothing in the GitHub and not having a white paper. And I said, well, for one, you listen to a few critics, okay, and then came to me versus being a journalist and getting both sides of the story, because there are a lot of people out there that love Veritaseum and appreciate the work that, my team and I are doing. But instead of looking at both sides, they just listen to the critics, and the critics' criticisms are awfully ignorant. We are, a private company, so our source code is behind a private GitHub repository, just like JP Morgan, Citibank, Goldman Sachs, and every single competitor we have. So you can't see it because you don't have the password, right?
Yeah.
That's the whole purpose. But instead, they assume that we were just like every other ICO that was born from a developer or a programmer that has a totally different business model. I'm not saying it's good or bad, they're not
It's just different.
but it's not us,
Right.
And then they disregarded all the traction we've had. Our ICO ended May 26th, and we've had an extreme amount of traction. The clients we've announced and landed, the stuff we're developing and releasing in real time almost. I'm actually proud. I'm happy of the team. The team has really been working. Not sleeping a lot, but they're working and accomplishing a lot.
Right.
Instead, I get a prominent editor with a hit piece coming on. So I was, I was disturbed by it, to say the least. And they ignored the fact that we're the number one, and saying, you could be manipulated, this and that. So whatever is guilty of, we may be guilty of, I just want number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way to asset, 415 to be held by the same
standard.
Right. And I've decided that starting in the first quarter or around the first quarter of next year, we're going to start reporting revenues, margins, and earnings as if we were traded on a stock exchange. In other words, we're going to show that we're making money and report it using GAAP standards. And, basically we're raising the bar again. We already have patent applications, business models, etc. We're going to take it to the next level. We don't have to do this. We're a private concern, selling software solutions, but I'm basically the sheriff trying to clean up the town.
And Crypto Town has been kind of messy lately, or in general, right? In terms of the actual valuations of cryptocurrencies and everything. So it's kind of good to kind of see somebody come in with more of a traditional finance background. I mean, you're still very contrarian, right, with the whole Bear Stearns and real estate stuff, right? But I think having a different perspective is always good to have in a marketplace, right? So I know, for example, like, I think because I met you after Token Summit, your ICO was wrapping up, and I don't think the ICO really got that much attention, right? It was a very low key ICO, right? But then
the reason was it wasn't pre-marketed. It was just marketed by me. Believe it or not, a lot of marketing agencies didn't want it, but I could understand that because it was sort of last minute. But I wanted to sell to people who could make use of it. Number one, and number two, I wasn't trying to raise $250 million of pre-sales, because I have a problem making use of that. The way I did it as an actual business, that would be actually selling product very quickly, was if I needed more capital, then I should be able to generate the capital through product sales.
So
token is our product.
So what's your take on all these different projects raising all this enormous amounts of money? What do you think is the ideal amount for a project to raise?
I mean, it really depends on the project. Some projects are more capital intensive than others. But if you're really, really confident on the project, you're truly confident in the project, then you would want to take as little capital in as possible, because you want to benefit from any increases of value as the business moves forward. Taking a few $400 million initially, which I guess would be the equivalent of a seed round of $300 million, is ridiculous. Can you really put that much capital to use? If you can't, then it's going to race. But it's not a direct correlation to a seed round because, again, you can't compare tokens with equity unless they're equity tokens, of course. Then it's a different story. Tokens are malleable; it could be whatever you want them to be. I'm a strong believer in fundamentals and actually doing business and making money. I don't need to play games and attempt to sell security. I'll sell the software up front. I get people to use it. I believe we proved the utility case for our tokens before the sale even ended by selling off the research reports, which are industry only, industry first, and there's still nobody who has reports that actually value tokens. I believe we proved the utility case for the Jamaican Stock Exchange deal. I was actually on the phone with them today, hammering out the next steps. And this next one, if I could close the deal, and they're very interested, so I think it's a matter of how, not if, but, knock on wood, you never know. But whether succeed or fail, we close this one, and these are one of the biggest exchanges in the world. We will change the way things are done. I have two countries in London, and these countries would be actual sovereign clients, where I would take the token and show them how to use our token to clean up their sovereign balance sheets.
All right, so is the big picture vision for Veritaseum to almost in a way replace regular exchanges like NASDAQ and Wall Street down the line?
I don't want to think that small. Actually, I want to replace the value transactions or change the way value is transacted. So, Veritas and Veritaseum is not a financial entity. We are a value exchange software entity. I picked the financial industry because I feel that's low-hanging fruit. The investment banks pay about 55 to 60% of their gross revenue to compensation. That's ridiculous. There are other industries that pay 10 to 15 to 20%. And these industries, their investors make a lot of money there. And financial investors can never make that much money because most of the money goes to the employees. 60% is ridiculous. Instead of it going to the owners of the company, it goes to the guys who work for the company. And if you want to compensate the guys who work for the company a lot, pay them in shares. That way, in order for them to make a lot of money, they have to push the value of the company up. But that's not what happens. A lot of the bonuses go out in cash. So with that structural deficiency, I call it deficiency. Other people call it, industry desire of bonuses, etc. We can come in and guaranteedly undercut everybody in price, and at the very least match the quality of their product. I say we'll definitely improve on it. So if someone is stuck in overpriced mode, it's low-hanging fruit. Why not go after it? But after the financial industry, you have real estate, we have healthcare, IT, legal industry. We have the ability to trade privacy itself, identity. The sky's the limit. Agriculture, merchant banking, everything. Several industrials. And we plan to veritize, which is a new verb, so let's use that, write that down on the wall. We plan to veritize, not monetize or securitize. We plan to veritize each and every transaction of value. So we're not replacing Wall Street. We're not going to replace exchanges. We're going to replace economic rent seekers, those who take value in transaction without giving requisite value in return.
All right. So do you have any competition out there? Do you have anything? Because there are lots of different projects who also have smart contracts, right? And the whole smart contracts aspect takes out the trustless. There is no broker in the middle. So what's to stop from other people doing the same thing with smart contracts?
Nothing stops them. They're still mostly developers and engineers. You need much more diversity in your team to do something like that. Do something what we're doing. Smart contracts is just a vehicle that we're using. Tesla is not in the road business. They're not. They don't build streets, and they don't compete with those who, manufacture asphalt and lay it down. They simply use the streets to have their cars go down the road. And so these smart contracts are the streets and the asphalt. Lanes are the streets, smart contracts are the traffic lights and the business logic. And we are Tesla. We're building the cars to bring people down the street.
All right, well said. Now,
our closest competitor wouldn't be in the ICOS space. Our closest competitor in this particular business vertical, this particular one, would probably be Goldman Sachs.
Really? Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
All right, so what's the issue with Veritas or Veritaseum not being on other exchanges. I've heard some conspiracies that they think you're competition, so they won't list you, like Poloniex, Bittrex, all these other exchanges. I mean, what's up
I
with
have
that?
absolutely no idea. I don't know. I've applied to them two, three, four times over. I've even talked to a couple of COOs. I've seen on Twitter a lot of people have petitioned, a lot, maybe at least 100 people
Right,
petition,
right.
to have it
Especially
listed.
with you guys number one in crypto asset value,
Yeah,
supposedly,
and it
right?
does look funny when you don't list the number one crypto asset.
Yeah.
But hey, if you do a search on CoinDesk since the ICO, I don't know if you even mentioned on CoinDesk once.
Now, so you guys are also a ERC20 standard token, right?
Right.
So that's very easy to just add, right? Because I add them all the time. So
I think you just you flip a switch and it's added.
Right, yeah, And
so I don't know. I can speculate, but I am the steward of this company, and I don't want to get into gossip and etc. But
right.
I'll have to admit, it does look funny. You have the largest news entity in the space that won't cover the number one asset. We also have the most traction of any ICO that I can think of by far.
Oh yeah, by far. Yeah. You guys are the biggest ICO in the last 2-3 months.
Track record in public is pretty significant. A lot of ICO founders are not that known, and I'm all over the place. CNBC, Bloomberg, I'm for 10 years. Right. So maybe I changed my cologne a couple of months ago. It's a little strong. It's just time. This Tom Ford stuff. It's a little strong. Maybe I don't know. Yeah,
because me and some buddies of mine, we actually kind of track ICOs, right? And we've been keeping stats. And your ICO, even though it's only 2 months, is already in the top 20 of all time in terms of ROI for actual people who purchase the tokens, right? So it's really been blowing up, I guess, very, very low key. But we're just shocked with the lack of coverage, right? So I know I'll definitely try to change that.
Realize that those who are attempting to buy it, and I get people who are asking me how to get access to it all the time, and we only take the capital, we only sell directly to either institutions or individuals who will have a true utility case for it, utility use case, because that's our business model.
Right.
And we, they say, they want to get F or BTC and trade it for or whatever token and trade it for purpose. The peer-to-peer or the
all right.
Decentralized tool, you can't use fiat, which is the primary onboarding methodology for tokens. Right. So if there was a method for them to come up with US dollars or euros again to buy it, you'd increase liquidity by maybe tenfold. So if it's out and very few people can access it, imagine if we had the same access as everybody else on that list. We were saying to be crippled with no media exposure and no universal access to Bitcoin, fiat, and easy to use centralized exchanges. And I don't want to get into centralized versus decentralized. Despite all these handicaps, it's still number one. If you look at our volume is like 2 to 3 million, 4 million a day.
Yeah.
That's more than 88% of that list. And that list has a fiat access. So, it's almost understated how much traction we've had, because it looks like you all have the same access, and we don't. It's just the number one in it, which has less access than everybody else.
All right.
So once normalized, and once someone comes to the senses, and it may be us, we do the Jamaica Stock Exchange, and we're a big force to compete with everybody else because we have no choice. But I'm telling exchanges now, I don't compete with you. Totally different business model. So I have no idea what's driving, to, but whatever it is, it's not true yet.
Yeah, I mean, they just have to wake up. So everybody on the live stream, our guest, by the way, is Reggie Middleton.
For some reason,
the audio, do you hear me?
Okay, you know what it is? I'm getting phone calls and I'm using a cell phone for the Hangouts.
Okay, all right.
So, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yeah, so for
I could barely hear you, Liz.
All right. Do you hear me now?
No, it's
kind of faint.
I'm getting phone calls. Let me answer the call. That could be the problem. Just
all right.
Hold for 1 second, okay?
All right.
Call stop.
All right, so for everybody on our live stream, our guest is Reggie Middleton. He's the founder and CEO of Veritaseum, Veritas.
Okay.
One of the actually
the audio, so I'll probably have to. Okay. I'll have to call back in because I can't hear audio. So
all right. That's fine. That's fine. So Reggie Middleton is our guest. He's the founder and CEO of Veritaseum, one of the best performing and the number one. It's going back and forth between number one and number two crypto assets in value, right? It goes back and forth between that and EOS, right? But if you go on CoinMarketCap.com, while Reggie calls back in, right? CoinMarketCap.com and look at all the different cryptos on there. His crypto is the number one crypto asset, meaning that not counting the currencies like Bitcoin, Litecoin, all that stuff, right? It's number one in terms of value. So if we go to crypto assets, top 100.
Okay, that's much better.
All right, do you hear me now?
Mm-hmm.
All right, good.
Yes, I do.
All right, yeah, I'm just showing people on the live stream your crypto right now, right? So this is Reggie's platform or company, Veritaseum. So it's Veritaseum and the token is called Veritas, or is it the other way around?
Veritas is a token, Latin for truth. Veritasium is the name of the entity that issued the token. The basically essence or element of truth. Because I'm nerdy like that.
And you guys have $1 million in volume today, and this is just on Ether Delta. So you guys, I think, probably have like 90, 95, maybe even 99% of the volume on that exchange, which is insane.
It was actually 3 million and change yesterday, so it was about 3.4 million yesterday.
Yeah, because you guys pretty much just put them on the map.
Yeah.
All right. So kind of moving forward, what's the next big thing you're working on in terms of this year for Veritaseum? Any news you can share with us?
Okay, well, I can't name clients without their permission. I actually got the name of one. I got permission from one client, but I'm not going to name it just yet. But very politically connected, very high net worth, lots of different businesses going, and she's using the platform to basically change the way her business is done.
All right.
Definitely different from what you think, totally
right.
For. We're also, from a technical perspective, we're working on, I like to say polishing, finishing up, but I don't want to jinx myself because that's not really software development works. Rental applications. So you can rent your Veritas to whales who want to do these big utility projects. For instance, let's suppose the Jamaica Stock Exchange wants to use Veritas to do something big and fancy in terms of creating a new digital asset class for distressed Jamaican companies, okay? They can either source it directly from us, go and buy it out from the market, or they can rent the Veritas from individual holders. These individual holders can then benefit from relative scarcity of Veritas because people didn't come and buy it up front in the initial sale. And there are two ways to rent it. They can use economic rent, which has a specific economic definition, basically pledging a Veritas to a particular deal in exchange for more than an actual Veritas accounting value in return. So suppose you need 100,000 Veritas to do a $10 million deal, okay, with our smart contracts, because there's a price, and the price is paid in Veritas. They can supply the 100,000 Veritas because the Jamaica Stock Exchange either doesn't have the time or doesn't want to pay the price of sourcing that 100,000 Veritas tokens. And in exchange for that, they're putting in, say, 1% of the deal. They can ask for 3% of the deal back in return. So that 2% difference would be the economic rent.
I mean, so
number two,
people are asking in the live chat real quick.
Contract rent is when you you offer your Veritas to somebody else, and they give you collateral in return, like say EFCA or something else, and they can use that Veritas for whatever they wish, contingent upon XYZ parameters, but they have to return it in 4 or 5 months, a year, etc. Just like renting an apartment. And when they return it, they have to return more than they borrow, which would be the rental yield or the rental price.
So token holders are able to rent their tokens.
Yeah. You know what happened? Because I got another phone call, the sound is muted again, and it looks like there's a bug in the app, because every time I get a phone call, this happens. So In order for me to hear what you're saying, I'm going to have to dial back in again.
All right.
Okay, so let me hang up and do that again.
All right. All right, everyone. Let me see if you guys have any questions.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, it's much better.
So let's take some questions from the chat. People are asking, what is the best advice for growing awareness of a coin's utility?
Prove it.
Prove it.
I think that's the best way to prove it. That's what we did first up. I have a pretty diverse team because I believe in diversity. I'm a black man. I grew up in New York, and I put my hands in a lot of different pots, from technical to development to engineering to analysis to investment, etc. And so, I happen to have a lot of intellectual firepower on staff or around me, so that's a plus. And if it really has utility, the best way to prove it is to show it, is to do it. Make something, do something. I'm also a hip hop head from way back in the days. I'm older than many that would be in the space, but there's this hip hop woman. She has this saying, don't talk, do.
Right.
And it's really,
so by do you mean having like an MVP or a prototype, or the actual product itself and value and all that?
If there's utility, you should be able to demonstrate the utility. If you have a problem demonstrating utility, that in itself shows that the utility might not be as prevalent as you think it is. And that could be because there's a founder bias. You're looking at something different because you have an emotional attachment to it. That founder bias might not necessarily be negative, because you could also see things that others can't. So we tried our best to show utility up front. I think we've done a very strong job to be out for 2 months. But everybody should do it. As a matter of fact, I think that pundits should, request utility before they retest a white paper. White papers are ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. I'm literally, as a fundamental investor, am disturbed and perturbed that people request a white paper, and a lack of a white paper is considered a negative. Now, a lack of a functioning product could be a negative, end all. Or a lack of actual utility could be a negative, but not necessarily end all. A lack of margins, or a business model, or intellectual property protection in the form of a patent or patent act, or traction with customers, or partnerships. All these things are real businesses. Most ICOs are lacking all of this, but they have a white paper and a website is slick. And you can't call it a scam if you actually want it. A scam is when you mislead somebody. But if you want a white paper and a pretty website, you're not asking for any fundamental business traction, then you get what you have coming, right?
Right. Good answer. So, one other question is, people are asking, will Veritaseum go after silver markets?
If we feel there's demand and there's a problem to be solved, yes. There are 2 litmus paper tests. There has to be a problem that needs to be solved, and that's not solved or not solved adequately. And there has to be a demand for the solution. There are a lot of problems for us to solve, but nobody's going to care because, there was not a problem that, bugged anybody. Now, you can have a master salesman that can tell somebody they have a problem that they didn't know about. They can even tell someone they have a problem that they didn't even have. But because they said they had a problem, everybody believed it. Steve Jobs was a perfect example. Telling everybody, you need an iPad app. Nobody knew they needed an iPad app. They didn't even know they needed an iPad.
Right.
Some of them didn't know what an iPad was, but after Steve Jobs' presentation, a lot of companies were building iPad apps. I'm, again, more analytical. I'm like, why would I build an iPad app versus a universal web page? But I think differently from many. But Steve Jobs was a master at what he did, and he was able to take relatively esoteric concept and make it very simple. If you look at his PowerPoint presentations and speeches, everybody has a bunch of numbers and graphics. He has like a picture of one thing, and he talks about it. And you look at that picture of one thing, but you can't study it because it's just a black line. But he tells a story around it. Many other CEOs of tech companies don't have that ability to, spin a story and make a movie in the user's mind. And I think they should. I think that's a skill. Presentation, speech, fantasy, creative, communication should be taught in business school and tech schools. At least those who want to start their own businesses.
All right, good. One other question from Chris. it seems Veritasium is more geared for companies as opposed to individuals. What's your take on that? Is that
Well,
your audience? Are you more?
when you're going up,
I mean,
say it again.
so he's asking basically, since Veritasium is more B2B than
Well,
B2C.
you know, Veritasium is a problem solver. So because of certain regulations and certain other issues, it's easier to or more profitable to attack big business problems. But once you attack and solve a big business problem and solve it, a lot of times the smaller retail guys benefit. Let's take, suppose we're able to, let's forget regulations for right now and laws and everything else. Let's just look at actual problems and potential solutions. Access to capital could be an issue. Okay, suppose we enable a small to medium-sized business, an SME enterprise, to raise capital for a very esoteric, product, a service, or function that they couldn't get money from venture capitalists or banks, etc. We enable them, raise it, we fund it, okay, and that raises through a token, and that token can now be purchased by the regular Joe Schmo, right? Combined with research, it shows the regular Joe Schmo, this is what it's about. These are the potential outcomes. This is potentially what can come of it in terms of value. Now we've helped the business, we've helped the Joe Schmo, and we've helped the economic environment that the Joe Schmo and all that business rest in, whether they make money or not, because we've injected capital and liquidity to the system. So if we help one successfully with a platform that has egalitarian access, we can help another. I plan to go and help everybody, but we're a startup. You can't do everything at one time. So we went after Wall Street because remember the reason we went after Wall Street vertical first? That's structural deficiency. They are overpaid. Right. They're overpaid.
All right, well said. All right, well, I know we're coming down to 1:30 and don't want to hold you up too long. Any last words? So how can people find you and just learn more about your company?
Well, I'm available through most major social media, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. I blast out through most of those almost daily. You can always reach me at the website, Veritaseum.com. Veritas, VERITASEUM.com. Contact me directly from the website. I do admonish and don't want anybody to contact me via Google search. You can always Google search and research something, but if you're trying to get to a page, I strongly suggest you type it in yourself. There have been a lot of phishing attacks, a lot of phishing attempts.
Oh, yeah, especially
and a lot of issues. And it comes from Googling things and clicking a link instead of just typing it in yourself and checking the spelling. Office is right at 1460 Broadway. I'm so accessible. Give me a call or email, set up a time, come right up, we'll chat.
All right. Sounds good. So one last question. So were you guys in any way impacted by the whole Ethereum hack? The Ethereum
we weren't impacted.
Hack?
The price of Ethereum went down. A lot of people are bad-mouthing Ethereum. We don't have a favorite blockchain because it's not our business. We're blockchain agnostic. Our largest assets are still on the Bitcoin blockchain. We built our other app. We're going to port it over. Ethereum is a very ambitious project. And I wouldn't say I was doubtful, but I did question whether they could pull it off. They did. But in pulling off basically a global state computer, you have a lot of surface attack vectors and surfaces to attack. And they get attacked and they fix it. The question is, will they play whack-a-mole for the next 5 years or will they complete it? The fact that they've come this far, I put my money on their ability to complete it. And that should be obvious because I did a token sale on the Ethereum network.
Right.
But that being said, I am blockchain agnostic. That's not my business.
Yeah, I mean, because some ICOs lost their money. I think Swarm City and Eternity and Edgeless, because some wallets had some bugs in them, and I think they lost most of their money, which is crazy.
Yeah.
And then CoinDesk.
I mean, it's difficult to prevent it. I mean, they robbed JP Morgan and steal their stuff. The central bank got robbed. The Fed got robbed. If it could be built, it could be broken. Keep that in mind.
Right. All right, well, thank you so much for your time, Reggie. The whole chat loves you. It's been a pleasure. People are definitely paying attention to Veritas and Veritasium, even though some people may not, right? And we'll definitely try to go out there and champion the company and the cause.
Okay, I appreciate it. Send me a link and to the recorded video, and I'll send some traffic your way as well.
All right, sounds good. Thanks a lot. Take care.
Okay, goodbye.
Bye.